should Curt Cignetti contemplate the Penn State job? Because he certainly earned, any look he could get.
It depends on what he wants, Pete. And here's what I mean by that. You and I had a little bit of a discussion this afternoon about it. And to Dan's point, and it's the correct one, you can win a national championship a lot of different places now. And I think Curt Cignetti proved yesterday. Now, look, who knows what they're going to do from this point out. But he proved last year making the playoff and yesterday's win on the road, getting rid of that albatross of not beating, an elite team on a big stage, that you can win a championship pretty much anywhere. But I maintain that while I agree with Dan's point that the Dusty Heismans and the helmets might not carry the weight they used to, if you are motivated by being an all-time legend in the grand scope of the game, or if you are happy being a local legend where they put up a statue to you at your school and people go, oh yeah, he was a really good coach, then there's no reason to leave. But if you are aspiring to be one of the all-time greats and recognized as such, maybe I should rephrase that, recognized as such, because there are a lot of coaches who didn't coach at these places who are all-time greats, but they don't pop to mind immediately. If he wants that, then some of these quote-unquote big name, big tradition jobs, big expectations, fire you when you lose 3 in a row in midseason, talk about firing you when you lose the season opener, then you should go there and you should try that if you aspire to that. If your goal is simply to try to build a program that wins a championship and you find personal satisfaction in that, there's no reason to listen to Penn State or any other job that might come open that rumors about Florida or, I guess probably there's talk at Auburn now. I don't know that Auburn is at that tier of jobs, but I mean, they'll whack a coach pretty fast, but I don't know that all time greats if they're the same ones, but some of those other ones, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Michigan, USC, Penn State, places like that. If you aspire to be one of the all-time legends of the game that your name pops to mind immediately, then you do. If your goal was to simply be the best of your era and win a championship in your era, there's no need. He's got it great. Because also when he inevitably, to Dan's point, when no matter how good, and I think Cignetti's terrific. I Googled him. I think he's great. But he inevitably at some point, if he stays in Indiana long enough, is going to go 7-5. He's going to. And so and nobody's going to say boo. Nobody's going to say boo at Indiana the one year they take a half step back after this. Depends on so the answer is it depends on what you want.
So I think that he can contemplate. Hell yeah, contemplate and tell your bosses you're contemplating. Take a couple million more on the pile, brother.
Buy another pink house, Sig.
Absolutely buy another pink house. Fantastic.
It's a pop culture reference, Rece. I don't make many.
Melon
I'm going to retire.
Get America, you and me.
Yeah. Anyway, I wouldn't leave. You can win national championship at Indiana. Curt Cignetti can win national championship at Indiana. He can win it this year. That game on Saturday, they didn't just defeat Oregon. They beat them. They were better. Oregon had a long pass play and a pick six, or it wouldn't even have been as close. They were better. They're better in the trenches. They were better all over. And I was the guy a week ago saying Oregon, maybe they should be ranked number 1. I think Oregon's going to be a playoff team and a scary out. They were better. They can do this. Maybe they can't beat. I don't know who they can't beat, but they look as good as anyone. In this era of the sport, Indiana is not a poverty program. They got boosters just like Penn State. Just because they didn't invest in football 40 years ago the way Penn State invested in football 40 years ago or 60 years ago or 80 years ago, it doesn't matter. Yes, it will help a little in recruiting when you have, hey, look at this. We won the title back in 86. And, well, you went to the Fiat. You wouldn't have believed it. They had, all this stuff. It helps, but it isn't the determining factor anymore. It's who you can get now. And so I could see somebody saying, look, I want to go to a place that has more proximity to easy to recruit talent. maybe someplace in the South or in Ohio State or something. I'm not saying there aren't still tiers, but man, those tiers are a lot closer.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, it's easier to coach to manage the Yankees than it is the Brewers, but who's got a better team this year? And so it's there are he does not need to leave. He's making a ton of money. He's got the boosters going. More will be activated. It just doesn't matter. And if you're sitting there going, where do I want to play football right now? I got a hard time finding a whole lot of places. There are going to be plenty of kids saying, I'm going to play for this guy. And it's not about all that other stuff. So if he wants to be a legend of the sport, win a title at Indiana. Penn State hasn't won a national championship in, I don't know what, 40 years?
1986.
Okay, almost 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic place, and they invested a long time ago, and they built a culture of that sport there. But these days, if a tradition mattered all this much in college basketball, Indiana basketball would be good, and it hasn't been good lately.
I ran into some guys on the street corner wearing the candy stripe warm-ups, and I
awesome.
complimented them, and they immediately said, we're a football school now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 thoughts on this. One is I don't think Cignetti's going to go from a pure practical standpoint. I'm certainly not putting Indiana in the playoff, but I think at this point, sitting there at number 3, the game at Penn State, which was their big road test, looks a lot less intimidating, right? They had Iowa, Oregon, and Penn State coming into the season. We thought we'd know a lot about them, and they were tested at Iowa, and they were obviously tested at Oregon. The first college football playoff weekend, and Rece, you might know this off the top of your head, I believe is December 19th, 20th, that weekend.
That's correct.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
Correct.
So if Indiana makes the playoff, there's like 0 chance you can go to another job. Like you could talk through some hypotheticals and maybes in house, but if you're an Indiana fan, you are really rooting for Sig to go to the playoff. And he is an old school, no distraction guy. I remember when he was at JMU and they were FCS and they were going to the playoffs and some job opened, and I listed him as a candidate. And he actually wrote on Twitter. I'd never met him before. He wrote on Twitter, "No, not interested." And then he DM'd me later. It was just like, "Hey man, like couldn't use the distraction." But that's, if you know him a little bit, that's kind of how that guy's wired. Like he's not going to have one foot somewhere else. He has never, in the 2 years that I've dealt with him in Indiana, to me, like pondered another job, thought about another job. Now, I'm not naive. I'm not Pollyannish. I think he thinks that he can just do everything he wants in Indiana. Like why would he need to go somewhere else? And I give the athletic director to Indiana, Scott Dolson, a lot of credit. USC went after their strength coach. Now, Dan was talking about like the world in 2019 and 2023 compared to now. In no time in the last 150 years of college football has the University of Southern California gone after a coach at Indiana. And the guy said no. But you know what they did? They paid him a boatload of money and he stayed. Now, he had belief in Sig and all that stuff. And, but like that's Derek Owings is his name. That's a big deal. Strength coach is a big deal. Bryant Haynes, the defensive coordinator who pitched basically a shutout in the second half.
Well,
he did. He was unbelievable. He's a top 5 defensive coordinator in the country, and he's getting paid like it. He's one of the, I think he's at over $2.2 million. So they gave him a raise because there was some interest in him at the end of last season. And then Penn State came after him before they hired Jim Knowles. And they came after him hard. And Scott Dolson just said, we are not going to get outbid. We're getting the same $70 million check from the Big Ten. So if you're going to leave here, it's not going to be for money. And that was just simply not the case the way college football was constructed previously. So, and Mike Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, same thing. He's, these guys are all making plenty of money. They have access to great players. Mendoza was a coveted player on the transfer portal market. They obviously have his brother there, Alberto, which gave him an advantage in getting Fernando. But there is no limit to the possibilities of Indiana football, which is if I went on a podcast in 2021 and said that, I would have got laughed out of the country, right? It would have been like the same amount of laughing if I had said James Franklin is going to be fired by Columbus Day, 3 weeks ago at practice there. But I think that's real, and I give Indiana credit. They got a taste of it, and they're like, we're not letting it go. And I think a lot of their build into this, and they gave Cignetti a huge contract, and they're certainly ready to keep going. They're not gonna go cheap on that guy, right? Like that's not, he's the magic sauce. So I just give them a ton of credit. And the last point, Rece, I'll make here is, I think Indiana saw a world after a couple generations of bad football where they could get left behind.
Oh yeah,
and all of a sudden they got this thunderclap of hope, and they said, we are going to hang on tight.
Well, we've brought this up, and I believed it firmly. If you don't, we've seen it at Vanderbilt too, because there will come a day, if you are not invested, if you are not bringing value to the property, that the ones who are going to say, why am I sharing my money with you? And why do we need you? And why do people want to see games against you? And that brings us to Dan's point about elevating. But what you said, and I hope my point was clear. It depends on what you want. I'll stand by that about different jobs. But it also means, because you can win a lot of places, that all of the names and all of the coaches that Penn State will go after will have similar circumstances. Mm-hmm. And if you don't think it could get worse than losing all these highly ranked games, how about a steady diet of regularly losing to UCLA and Northwestern?